When it comes to AWS, the most common, or should I say most notorious security breach is about public access of S3 buckets. You can Google a lot of companies out there who have been a victim of S3 bucket being public or its objects being public. That is why some time back AWS announced this block public access feature with the S3 buckets. So now with only one click, you can block all public access to your S3 bucket. All you need to do is to go to your console, select your bucket, and then click on block public access. So AWS has made it easier to block all public access, but still there is a lot of confusion around what exactly is public here in this case. In this video, I'm going to show you few IAM policies and bucket policies to explain what exactly is meant by public and blocking the public access. So now let's get uh, deeper into these policies. In this first policy, what we are trying to do is to see how S3 block public access works on this example. Let's suppose you have an S3 bucket as shown in this policy, and the name of the bucket is doc example bucket with S3 block public access turned on. And now we want to attach a new bucket policy which is on your screen. This policy grants access to everyone in the organization, this O12378. That could be hundreds of thousands of users and roles spread across thousands of accounts. Does that mean it's public? No. It's not a matter of counting the number of people with potential access. It's about inferring trust and making sure that access is only granted to those entities. In this case, we AWS infers that you trust the organization O-12378 and AWS check if any access is allowed outside of that organization. In this case, there is no additional access, so this policy is not public. We can safely attach this policy to our bucket. Now let's look at another example. Let me grab that policy and then paste it on your screen so that and then we will review it. Okay, so this is a bit of a bigger policy, so I will go it line by line. And as you can see in this policy, we have bunch of restrictions with the conditions. We have a username Alice, and then we it is tagged with department equal to finance plus this is part of an AWS organization. It is using two-factor authentication. It is using a secure HTTPS connection, and also it should be coming from the IP CIDR range of 20.30.40 address in the VPC from which it is being called. Is this policy public? What do you think? Just take a moment and then we'll go further. Okay, yes, this policy is public, though there are many restrictions, but none of them are trustable individually. One way to think about is to imagine an arbitrary person such as John Q who wants to access this bucket. He can create a user named Alice in his own account, attach the appropriate department tag to that user, create an AWS organization for his account, enable two-factor authentication, and then use a secure connection, which in this case is HTTPS. Finally, John can create his own VPC, assign the IP CIDR range, which we have mentioned in this policy 10.20.30.40 to one of his instance and then make the request from that instance. This policy has many restrictions, but John can control all of them. Because S3 block public access is turned on for this bucket, you cannot attach this policy to this bucket. You must scope the policy down to remove public access before you can attach it. But that is the advantage of block public access. Okay, now let's look at another example. Let me grab the new policy and replace it here. Okay, now Take a moment to review this policy on your screen and then let me know if you think this policy is public or not. This policy isn't public. It might initially look public since it has an allow statement granting access to everybody, as you can see here, but there is a deny statement that always takes precedence over allow, and this deny statement takes away any access outside of organization O-12378. And in this case, AWS infers that you trust organization O-12378 and check to see if any other access is allowed. This check requires figuring out precisely how all allow statements and deny statements in a policy interact. For that, AWS uses automated reasoning. And then there's another blog post which I have done about that automatic reasoning. The basic idea is that AWS exercise every possible request by using variables instead of special values. So I hope that after watching this video, you now have an intuitive understanding of what public access actually means and how AWS checks for it. So now we know and understand that when S3 block public access is enabled, AWS will infer who we can trust from our policy and then check that only those trusted identities have access. I hope this was useful, and please don't forget to enable the public block access for your buckets. If you have any comments or feedback, please put them down the video. Thanks.